Two Chairs No Waiting, episode number 154. The eBullet, September 2011. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the fine folks over at Weaver's Department Store. So head over to weaversdepartmentstore.com, pick up some of your favorite Mayberry things. They got CDs, books, everything. Everything you could want if you're a Mayberry fan. Drop by over there and check it out at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners just like you. Hey, and I want to thank our executive producer tonight for episode number 154 is Brian Saul. So, Brian, hey, I want to thank you for helping us out with the show. Hey, everybody, I am your host, Allan Newsome, and it is great to have you along here with me in Mayberry this evening. And we're going to be talking about the eBullet. Now, we did that back in May. We had an episode about the eBullet. And tonight we're going to talk about it again. And this is the episode, this is from September 2011. I think it'd be nice. It's nice for you guys to be able to see a little bit of a snapshot of just what's going on in and around the Andy Griffith Show. Even if you look back over time and see these things, I think you're going to enjoy them. So tonight we want to hear a little about what's been happening. So let me just head on over there to that and let you see. So the eBullet, if you don't know, is the electronic version of the official newsletter of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. Yeah, that's hard to say. The Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. The eBullet used to be, when it was a print publication, was The Bullet. And when it became an electronic version only, it became the eBullet. Well, we're on volume 11, issue number 4 of the eBullet. And so this is a 4th issue of this year. Now, we haven't done a podcast about every version of the eBullet that's come out, just because it's, I don't want to overwhelm you with these things. But this is a great newsletter, and if you don't get it, you can definitely go out there and find it. If you go to imayberry.com, you'll see a link right there on the front that says eBullet, and you'll be able to go and read the current issue, plus go back and look at the archives, because we've got archives going back to May 2001. So you'll be able to see them. You'll be able to find things in there like Floyd's Barbershop Bulletin Board, which is a calendar of events, things that are going on in and around the Andy Griffith Show, coming up really soon here into September, a couple of days actually, is Mayberry Days, the 22nd annual Mayberry Days. So hopefully you'll be able to attend that. But if you can't, there's all kinds of other things coming up later. If you're in the North Alabama area, I just want to tell you this real quick, because hopefully you'll be able to attend. But if you're not, I think you would be interested to know this, that George Lindsay is being inducted to the University of North Alabama Sports Hall of Fame during a ceremony on the campus in Florence, Alabama on the 24th of September. Yeah, that's during Mayberry Days, but that's happening. And there's a Mayberry cruise coming up in November. So anyway, if you go to the eBullet, you'll be able to see all these wonderful things. Now, the next thing you'll find in there is news of cast and crew. Now, that's the part I believe will be interesting to us here on the podcast. So I want to share just some of the news of cast and crew that Jim Clark puts together for us for the eBullet. Now, again, I want to encourage you to head over there and get subscribed so you get the eBullet. It'll be mailed directly to you, or you can go and do a RSS subscription. There's all kinds of ways to be able to get this content. But let's go on into the news of cast and crew. Starts off saying Andy Griffith has so far dodged major damage to his home in the North Carolina coast this hurricane season. Every time a big storm heads toward the Outer Banks, fans get concerned about Mayberry's main man. Well, the Andy Griffith Show guest star, George Spence, he was on the episode Guest in the House, who's also a perennial Mayberry Days favorite, lives near Andy and Cindy Griffith. He says he had only a few limbs down and a little bit of trim torn from his home by Hurricane Irene. George Spence and his wife Stephanie are looking forward to seeing friends and fans in Mount Airy at Mayberry Days coming up here soon. The Don Knotts Legacy Fund, you may not have known about this. The Don Knotts Legacy Fund is about halfway to its fundraising goal for creating a memorial park, including a statue, in Don's hometown of Morgantown, West Virginia. There's a website we'll have links to called DonKnottsStatueFund.org, where you can donate toward this legacy fund. And they're also having a supplemental fundraiser that you can get a CD of a 1958 recording of Mr. Piles, that's one of Don's friends, singing 24 songs you love plus a bonus song. So this is they're gathering all kinds of information. His name's John Pyle. So if you make your checks payable, you can donate to help get a statue of Don Knotts there in Morgantown, West Virginia. So this is something you'd want to know about. Now, Ron Howard, you know him as Opie, but Ron Howard and daughter Bryce Dallas Howard, the villainess in this summer's 2011 box office hit The Help, are working as producer and director team. Bryce is both the director and writer on an ambitious short film called Imagination. It's spelled Imagin 8 ION. Imagination. This is very clever, isn't it? Anyway, it goes on to say, the film will tell a story using images selected from a worldwide photo contest sponsored by Canon that had nearly 100,000 entries. Ron was the judge who picked the 8 winners from the finalists. So she's going to be directing and writing this film. So that's cool. Now, Jim Nabors, that's Gomer Pyle for all of us. He was hospitalized briefly in Honolulu in July with a severe sore throat, a situation he treats with extreme care because of his immunorepressive medication he has continued to take since his 1994 liver transplant. He had been scheduled to sing the national anthem for a special ceremony aboard the USS Arizona Memorial, but he had to cancel that engagement. He's back home and he's doing fine. So that's great news about Jim Nabors. That's good that he's doing well. George Lindsay, Goober, our friend Goober, is enjoying official retirement, but keeps a full schedule. An honor coming up for him this fall, the same weekend as Mayberry Days, kind of already mentioned this one, but is an induction to the Sports Hall of Fame at the University of North Alabama in Florence, Alabama, where he was a quarterback a few years back. So that's great honor for George, and it's great to know that he's being honored for so much of his hard work that he's done with UNA for the UNA George Lindsay Film Festival and just other work like that he has done, and he's getting some recognition for that. That is absolutely wonderful. Now, Betty Lynn, Thelma Lou, was under the weather a little bit back in July, but is feeling chipper again and ready for Mayberry Days. She continues to really enjoy life in Mount Airy, where she often greets fans, including at a regular monthly gig at the Andy Griffith Museum. If you drop by the eBullet, you'll be able to see the calendar for that. Or if you drop by imayberry.com and look at the calendar there, it'll list any appearances that Betty or any of the other cast members will be making. They'll be listed there. Moving on, Doug Dillard, the banjo-playing darling boy, has worked his way through the summer's heat as he continues to build his strength back after his recovery from a collapsed lung back in February. His wife Vicky is back home after a recent major surgery as well. In mid-September, both Doug and his brother Rodney Dillard, the guitar-playing darling boy, performed with their respective bands at a big celebration marking the 100th anniversary of the birth of the father of bluegrass, Bill Monroe, at the International Bluegrass Hall of Fame in Owensboro, Kentucky. Rodney and the Dillard Band also have a new gospel CD out, and you can find that at weaversdepartmentstore.com. And the band has a new fan site called Dillard Grass, and we'll have a link to Dillard Grass so you can sign up to be a fan of Rodney Dillard, and you'll be able to keep up with what he's doing as he promotes his CDs that he has out. And you can get his CDs over at weaversdepartmentstore.com and help support the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. All of the original Dillards, Doug Dillard, Rodney Dillard, Dean Webb, and the late Mitch Jane, are being inducted into the Missouri Music Association's Hall of Fame. They'll be joined by their late pal John Hartford and by Charles Wolfe as the first members of the bluegrass genre in the initial class of Hall inductees. So congratulations to the Dillards. That is big. And Barney would say, that big ain't the word for it. But, Maggie Peterson, that's Charlene, has teamed up with TV brother Rodney Dillard for several appearances at Mayberry-themed events so far this year, including the Mayberry Squad Car Nationals in Graysville back in July, and Jeff Branch's, he does Howard Sprague as a tribute artist, Jeff Branch's Dare fundraiser in Troy, North Carolina back in August. And it was a great, great show, by the way. Maggie, Rodney, and the whole group, they put on a absolutely amazing show wherever they go. So if you go check out the calendar at imayberry.com when you're online, you'll be able to find out where that's going to be and try to make a chance to go, because I know you'd enjoy it. Next up, let's hear about James Best. Now, James Best was Jim Lindsay, the guitar player on the Andy Griffith Show that, played the key of G or whatever it was he found there on his guitar. But he played the guitar for him there in the jail. And James Best is now busy editing Return of the Killer Shrews, the sequel to Attack of the Killer Shrews, the cult classic in which he starred in the late 1950s. The film, shot in California this summer, stars John Snyder and also features fellow Dukes of Hazzard actor Rick Hurst. Now, of course, John Snyder and Rick Hurst were both on the Dukes of Hazzard. John Snyder was one of the Duke boys, and Rick Hurst was one of Roscoe's deputies. As well as Jennifer Lyons is also starring in the film. Bruce Davidson, Patty Browning, and David Browning. But David is not going to be the Mayberry deputy, but you'll be able to see both David Browning and his wife Patty on the Return of the Killer Shrews. So be watching for that. James is shrewdly both producing and acting in Shrews this time around. To stay current on the latest Shrews news, including sneak peeks from the set, visit www.killershrews.movie.com. And there'll be links on the show notes for that as well. So be sure and check that out. James is a great guy. James is also just back from a successful Dukes of Hazzard event in Virginia back in August. So y'all definitely check out James' stuff. He's doing some wonderful things. We got Roland White. He was one of the country boys in Mayberry on Record, that episode of the Andy Griffith Show. Roland White is a recipient of the 2011 Distinguished Achievement Award from the International Bluegrass Music Association. So you can follow him too. There's links. There's going to be a website for Roland. You'll be able to go and see it. It's RolandWhiteMusic.com. You'll be able to go there. Now, don't worry about trying to remember all these. If you're listening to the podcast, I will have the links on the show notes. So if you go to the show notes for episode number 154 of the Two Chairs No Waiting podcast, you go to twochairsnowaiting.com. You'll see all these links. All right, next up, Margaret Carey. She was on 2 episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. She was on the Christmas episode. She was the wife of the husband that had gotten locked up. You remember that? That's who she plays. She was also the model that they used to draw Tinkerbell on the old Peter Pan Disney movie, just so you'll know. But Margaret Carey had an appearance at Disneyana event in Dayton, Ohio earlier this summer. And she was in British Columbia for another one in August. Her next stop is Mayberry Days in Mount Airy, North Carolina. And she's also hard at work at her autobiography. And finally, last of our cast and crew news is Richard O. Dick Link, whose name's Dick Link's what everybody called him. Richard O. Link, which you actually saw as the personal manager of Andy Griffith, and he was also a associate producer of the Andy Griffith Show. He sends his greetings, aloha, from his home in Hawaii to Mayberry friends, especially in Mount Airy and in Mayberry Days. And Dick is the proud grandfather that he became on July 10th. He's showing that we had a picture of him here on the bullet. He's holding his 5-day-old grandson, July 10th. So his 5-day-old grandson, Duke Killen McCullough. So that's great to see, because Richard is Mr. Link, Dick Link. He's retired to Hawaii and is enjoying himself there. So, and there's all kinds of other things in the bullet other than the cast and crew news. If you go on down the pages, you'll be able to find stuff about Mayberry on the web, which includes information about this podcast, Kevin Burke's podcast, as well as a little bit about the Mayberry Bible Study podcast. It just started. We got one episode and another one ready to go soon. So you can check those out if you go to the twochairsnowaiting.com website. You'll see across the top of the page, it has the links to all the other podcasts that are available. Burke on Mayberry, Mayberry Bible Study, plus Two Chairs No Waiting, of course. And the bullet also gives information about all the ways you can keep in touch with the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club, including their Facebook page at facebook.com/TAGSRWC. That's the initials for the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. So definitely check that out. Now, they also have chapters. We got some new chapters that are involved, have all kinds of stuff, including chapter news. So I'm not even going to try to go through all of this, but there's some fun news here from different chapters of the Andy Griffith Show. And you'll definitely want to check that out, including stuff about in July, the Mayberry Minutemen chapter hosted the Mayberry Comes to Graysville Festival in conjunction with the Mayberry Squad Car Nationals, organized by the Hearty Eating Men and Beautiful Delicate Women. And the Venable, don't do that, Ollie. Don't do that. From Wynne, Arkansas, was in Nashville in August and was able to gather for a meal with the Andy chapter. You got time to breathe, got time to eat, or something like that. Man, the Mayberry chapter, they're always busy. They continue to meet at least monthly, and they put out a absolutely wonderful newsletter that 3 times a year. So you want to, if you want to check them out, you can go to mayberrychapter.com. And Mayberry Days trivia champ Dennis Bill, he'll be back in Mayberry Days this weekend to defend his title. And other chapters that are talked about are Shakedown from Laurinburg, North Carolina, Al's Fine 2 chapter from Des Moines, Iowa, and I skipped some others, I believe, up here. Aren't we lucky to live in such a friendly town from Burlington, North Carolina, and the Single Bullet Society. I love that one. And, of course, there's Remembering Mayberry chapter from Chillicothe, Ohio. Anyway, they were all mentioned. There's all kinds of information there. And, of course, the merchandise from Weavers. There's links to all of that kind of thing, anything that's new. And usually there's a Miss Crump's Mayberry quiz with trivia questions. But this week it says Miss Crump is using the excuse of giving her pupils time to prepare for Mayberry Days trivia contest as a reason for not offering a trivia quiz in this issue. What will old lady Crump's excuse be next time? Wait and see. Maybe we ought to just have a contest to guess what her next excuse will be. In any case, she surely does look happy about not having to grade any quizzes during Mayberry Days. So, all right. Anyway, folks, that's just a little bit of the information that you'll find when you go and read the eBullet and subscribe to it. I definitely want to encourage you. Jim Clark puts in so much work into gathering all this information for us, the fans of the Andy Griffith Show, and he is gracious in allowing me to verbalize it here on the podcast. So I want to thank Jim for allowing that, and I definitely want to encourage you to head out there and support Jim. Subscribe to the eBullet. Go over to Weavers. If you got any kind of Mayberry things you want, buy it there because you do help support the club. And Jim Clark has worked so hard all these years to develop this club into what it is. So, hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear some information, some thoughts from you. You can email me at floyd@imayberry.com. You can also drop by the podcast website at twochairsnowaiting.com and leave messages there as well. Or you can head over to facebook.com/twochairs and leave messages there. Any of those things would be great, but even better would be if I could actually hear your voice. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415 because next week it's going to be a listener feedback episode. A lot of people talking like you guys. I want to hear from you. So we'll be listening to you guys talk because I got a feeling after doing Floyd all weekend, my voice will be about gone. So y'all call in so I won't have to talk much. And folks, I want to thank you again for spending a little time with me in Mayberry, and we'll see you guys next week on Two Chairs No Waiting, the Andy Griffith Show podcast. See you guys. Have a great week.